Sometimes the longest journeys aren't measured in miles, but in the lies we tell and the truths we learn too late. One afternoon after school, I boarded the crowded bus that would take me home to Rivertown. I was already exhausted. My backpack felt heavier than usual, and since there were no empty seats, I had to stand in the aisle, gripping the cold metal pole for balance. My legs ached, and I silently wished the ride would pass quickly. That's when I noticed him. A young man, probably around 20, sat by the window. He had reddish-brown hair and was chewing gum nonstop. Earphones were in his ears, and his phone was pressed tightly to his face. But what really caught everyone's attention was that he was crying. Not quiet tears, loud, dramatic sobs. "I'm coming. Please wait for me." He sat desperately into the phone. "I caught this bus just for you. Don't leave, please." Several passengers exchanged confused glances. The bus hadn't even left the station yet. To reach Rivertown, it usually takes nearly 50 minutes, but from the way he was talking, you would think he was already just around the corner. A few minutes later, the phone rang again. "Yes, I've reached Hilltop," he said, quickly. "Just 5 more minutes." I looked out the window. We hadn't even passed the first traffic signal. Hilltop was at least half an hour away. People nearby smiled quietly. Some shook their heads. We all understood what was happening. He was lying to calm someone down. Maybe his girlfriend was waiting somewhere, anxious and worried. Maybe she was checking the road every few seconds, hoping to see him appear. The bus rolled forward slowly through traffic. The young man wiped his tears dramatically and kept chewing his gum. Then the phone rang again. "I'm almost at Flower Point now," he said urgently. "Wait near the flower shop. I'll get off there." At that exact moment, the bus conductor shouted loudly from the front, "He'll stop! He'll stop! Anyone getting down, come forward." A wave of silence moved through the bus. The young man froze. Everyone knew the truth now. If Hilltop had just arrived, then Flower Point, 2 stops ahead, was impossible. His voice trembled as he realized what had happened. He quickly lowered his phone, but it was too late. There was a long pause. Then his phone rang again. He answered hesitantly. This time, he didn't speak loudly. We couldn't hear the girl's voice, but we saw his face change. The tears were no longer dramatic. They were real. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I just didn't want you to be upset." A few seconds later, he slowly removed the phone from his ear. She had hung up. The rest of the journey felt strangely quiet. He kept staring at the window, his reflection looking back at him like a stranger. He tried calling again and again. When we finally reached Rivertown, I expected him to rush off the bus. But instead, he remained seated. Then something unexpected happened. An elderly woman standing near him gently tapped his shoulder. "Son," she said, kindly, "love doesn't need speed. It needs honesty." The bus grew silent again. The young man nodded slowly. He stood up, wiped his face properly this time, and walked off the bus, not toward the flower shop, but toward the main road. Curious, I followed him at a distance. Instead of running to meet someone, he stopped at a small roadside flower stall. He bought a simple bouquet of white lilies. He looked at his phone for a long moment, then typed a long message. After hesitating, he pressed send. A few seconds later, his phone buzzed. He didn't smile widely. He didn't cry again. His shoulders relaxed. He turned back toward the bus station and boarded another bus going in the opposite direction. That's when I understood. He wasn't trying to prove he was almost there anymore. He was actually going there. And for the first time that day, he wasn't lying. As for me, my legs were still hurting from standing so long. But somehow, the journey didn't feel tiring anymore. Because I had learned something important. You can lie about distance. You can lie about time. But you can never lie about where your heart truly stands.